My name is Dr. Keith McNally, and this is my story. The images you see are those of hope and healing. They are also the images of my story, my training for the Appalachian Trail hike in 2026. But more on that in just a bit. First, my backstory. I'm a disabled U.S. Marine combat veteran. Between 1996 and 2021, I made 5 suicide attempts. I'm diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. I have hallucinations, depressive episodes, and as you now know, suicidal ideations. My 5th suicide attempt in 2021 was followed by a heart attack in October of 2022. This is my story. The good thing, this is not the end of my story. After my 5th suicide attempt, I began to rethink my life. That is, if I didn't make necessary changes, I would not survive another attempt. I have a daughter, and I was not going to leave her full of questions, anger, and confusion. Part of the solution was to make friends, build new connections, have real conversations, and learn to share in the experience we call life. I started the Question Guy podcast to create those connections and share people's personal stories. Today I host the Trail to Transformation podcast, a podcast I like to call a podcast for veterans by veterans. It's a show dedicated to helping veterans find real value, reclaim their identity, and establish purpose in their life. After my heart attack in 2022, I made significant changes to my lifestyle, my diet, and my exercise routine. The images you see in this video are that transformation. Hiking in nature became my go-to, a way of reinventing myself and finding help, hope, and healing to keep me alive. As a result of this new phase in my life, my mission is to share the adventure with others, to help them heal and give them hope. Now, how exactly am I going to do that? My goal is to complete a thru hike of the Appalachian Trail, a 2,193-mile expedition from Springer Mountain, Georgia to Cottonwood, Maine. In preparation, I've built up my endurance and my strength, have relearned to eat in a very nutritious manner. I started hiking 5 miles a day. I'm now up to 12 miles daily, pushing that to 20 miles on the weekends, all of this carrying a 40-pound backpack. Imagine that. I know if I can make this my reality, you too can do something amazing with your life. But for right now, I need your help. I want you to be a part of this mission. I want you to be a part of this expedition. In order to make it across those 2,000 miles, I need your money. Every dollar that you donate gets me 1 more mile through the Appalachian Trail. So whether it's $1 a mile, $5 for lunch, or $10 for an overnight stay somewhere, know that every dollar that you give will be used wisely to support my efforts to make it across this trail and to help other veterans find help, hope, and healing along the way. So with that, I thank you, and I do appreciate your support, and I'll see you on the trail.
Wow. That's all I can say is wow. It is just such a powerful video, and it's just an incredible journey. one that you've undertaken. First of all, I want to welcome everyone back to another Mindful Monday, and welcome back, Dr. Keith McNally. If you guys have been following us, we had Keith on earlier in this year, talking about his trail to transformation and his hike and his backstory and his journey. But we're now getting closer to 2026, and about 6 months away, I believe, right out there from your hike. And I know we've only been recently talking about it, but really you have been preparing for it for the past 2 years. So I know you're going to want to back up that, and that's fine. But I was going to say, what I want to know is, like, reflecting on those past 2 years, what has been the most surprising aspect of your preparation for the Appalachian Trail hike?
Laura, thank you so much for having me on your show again. I do appreciate it. And such a really intriguing question to kind of get us started in the conversation. There's a lot going on here. And, we talk about, the past 2 years significantly because that's really when, the dedication and the bulk of the training really began. And so, gosh, as the time of this recording, lots and lots of, I can't even begin to kind of tell you what really the transformation is all about. But I guess that's where the conversation is going to go. Just kind of really to back up a bit, looking back at my heart attack back in 2022, and then a couple months in to kind of reinvent myself, putting that focus in to the Appalachian Trail to kind of make this an initiative, a target, something for me to kind of achieve is really what this is all about. And so, can we have that conversation?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's such a beautiful path and pictures and stuff that you've been doing. I'm kind of curious too as to why you chose the Appalachian Trail.
So behind me, there's a book. It's called Walking the Path: A Leader's Journey. And I wrote that all throughout 2022, published late December 2022. And the crux of it, although academic, there's a story in there. And so the story is about a young man named John and his his need to kind of find himself. And in order to do that, he's got to leave everything behind, his family, his community, his entire life, climb this mountain and go find himself. Now, along the way, he takes his friends with him and a mentor, but it's that journey that really he's got to find himself inside before he sees himself as others see him: a leader, a friend, a mentor, a cheerleader. And even though he's got some challenges, he's got to take on that mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true because a lot of times we don't see ourselves as others, see us, or even we get kind of lost and not sure, how to find ourselves.
Yeah.
But, so, how did you choose the Appalachian Trail?
It's close to me.
Okay.
So I live here in Virginia, so Suffolk, Virginia, and I really don't know. I mean, there are, all kind of mountains everywhere, but this one's close to me and it's accessible. And it's that 2,193-mile hike, like we saw in the introduction. It's 14 states long, and I think I pronounced it incorrectly in the video, and so I'm going to have to correct myself. It's Katahdin, or no, it's not. It's Katahdin, because I always say Katahdin, and it's actually Katahdin, Maine. That's the northernmost terminus, and that's where I've got to get to. It starts in Springer Mountain, Georgia, and like you said, we're 6 months out. We're literally, March 15th is my launch date now. And for those who are wondering, I am officially registered as a thru-hiker. And so you actually have to go to the AT Conservancy. They send you to a specific website. You actually do register. I've got, the PDF copy, and I got a hard copy too, because you actually have to meet certain, milestones along the way. And so it's official. It's officially official.
That is wonderful. So, I would imagine, is there like physical requirements and stuff, or stuff that you have to fill out? Because would they? for their concern for you making that kind of trek, or?
Well, they do ask for an emergency contact, but they don't ask for any any limiting, physical limiting, disabilities or whatnot, or even psychological or psychiatric. So none of that. They do ask if you're bringing a dog or not, or if you'll be traveling with others. So those are the things they do want to know. But other than that, it's really, where are you going to start from and how long do you expect to be out there is really the kind of the bulk of what they're looking for.
Nice. So, I think when you originally started this, it was just yourself, but now you have someone that is going to be hiking with you, right?
That is so true. And that's kind of why I asked you, can we do another story? Can we do another TV show? Because so much has changed and so much about me has changed. But for the past year, so, the story is I'm a disabled veteran and I've been wanting a service dog. I've got PTSD and I think that's going to be a real benefit to me. My therapist agrees, and so my doctor agrees. And so we're all on the same page with that. But finding the right dog for me is always, a challenge, finding the right dog for anybody. And what I hear is that you don't typically choose the dog chooses you. And so that's kind of a new reality for me. And so she's downstairs right now. She's sleeping on my bed. Her name is Ashley. She's an Australian Shepherd. And I won't go into details about how we found each other, but she's finally here. She's not a service dog, and so she's my personally owned dog. I've adopted her. She's a rescue. But we hit it off. One, good. But the more important thing for me, I'm not allergic to her. So that's really, really important because I'm allergic to most animals, dogs especially, and I play with her daily and I don't get the negative allergic reaction. So she's a keeper.
Nice. Yeah, and they do choose you. It's kind of an incredible thing, but there's a connection that maybe a lot of people can't quite understand, nor do they. But for me, dogs have always been like my kids, and of course, I have adopted my friend's service dog, which took to me. And like my mom said, he's always been stuck to me, but now he's like Velcro, so does not like to be separated. So that really changes. So how has that changed your hike? Because now it's not just carrying provisions for you, but now you have to have provisions that you're carrying for Ashley as well.
True, true. But we found a backpack for her. So she's a mid-sized dog and I hear her downstairs. Um, we've got to acclimate her. I've got to acclimate her to her own pack. She does need to carry some food, but you're right. So, my video says I'm carrying a 40-pound rucksack. That's closer to 50 now because extra water, extra food. Dog food is not light at all.
No, it's not.
It's not light. So the whole aspect of my training, my preparation has changed. And so, it did start at 5 miles a day. I do 12 miles daily. For me, once I've adopted her, and I've had her for about 30 days now, I wasn't quite sure how she would take to walking every day, but everybody who's owned a shepherd or a sheepdog knows that they could go on and they can go on all day. And it turns out that that's true. So I started at 5 or 6 miles in addition to what I would do, but that didn't even tire her out. This past Saturday, we went to First Landing State Park. It's our first park trip. She took me on a walk is what happened. I was just trying to get her acclimated to, being out in real nature, interacting with the birds and the squirrels, and if we see a snake, we'll take care of that. She took me for a 16, almost 17-mile walk, and when I say she took me, is because she was so excited to be out there that the leash was as tight as it can get. I'm holding her back so that I could walk her pace.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely some incredible changes, but obviously good ones because you can tell because you just light up when you mention her and talk about her. So I think it's probably going to be a very good change and inspiring for you to help you get through the hike.
It is because I am a cat person by nature, so I have not really, as an adult or even as a child, owned a dog. So just the fact that I have her, can interact with her, We spend 24 hours a day together, other than the fact that I'm up here in the office. She's in the house. We did our 8-mile walk this morning. After, we record this, we're going to go back for another 5 or 6. She's just, it's a different experience, having Ashley. It is something almost spiritual, I would imagine, but it's definitely heartfelt. I now have to learn how to take care of a dog. So not only do we have to train and prepare, just in terms of our endurance going out in nature, I've got to really understand her as her own unique special entity. I want to call her a person. She's almost that close to me. She is a person. She's just got 4 legs.
Well, they are. When they do get trained as a service dog, they are considered a person. They're not considered a pet or a dog. And really, mine, I've always talked to them like people because they do understand you. It's a little different than cats. These guys are like unconditional love. They're with you no matter what. And they love that interaction and the love, where cats are a little more, yeah, they can bother with you or they cannot.
They're a bit more eccentric.
They're a bit more eccentric. Yes.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, so absolutely. So for me, it was, especially, and I go back to my PTSD and, all the diagnoses that I kind of indicated earlier, in the video. It's a different experience. She allows me to stop when I'm having, problems and struggles, and she kind of just sits with me. But then it's like, let's get up and do something. She has that innate need to exert energy, and that actually benefits me. So my training, my preparation has been all about changing my body mentally, physiologically, spiritually, emotionally, and I've done that. But she adds this really special component that I'm just really learning about. It is heartfelt. She's right there with me, and now it's just kind of building that relationship with her.
Yeah, I know from my own personal experiences, they're a huge support because no matter what's going on, or you could be having a good day, I mean, you can't help but to smile or just give them a hug, and it just kind of changes your whole day, or go out and play with them. For me, it's always just helped really just change everything. But
And for me, it's like when I get into bed, she jumps right on in there. Now I've got to teach her, because she's only 25 pounds, but I think that's all in her skull, because when she just flops down on me, man, her head just conks me in my forehead. That hurts. That hurts a bit. But
yeah, mine's 71 pounds, and he takes up most of the bed. But even when my late husband and I, we had 3 dogs. That's why we have a king size bed. They were all 45 to 50 pounds. All 3 of them.
oh wow,
All
yeah.
3 of them have always been in the bed. Those are our kids. But yeah, that was
And
just. I don't know if I had a dog and they're not sleeping in the bed, I wouldn't be able to sleep. For me, because I'm just like, where are they?
mhm.
Now, if they're not there, that's one thing. But when you know they're supposed to be there, yeah, it just doesn't sit well with me putting them like in a kennel or having them in their own bed when I'm in my bed.
But you know what? The cat and the dog. So the cat's name is Shadow, and her name is Ashley, and I think they talk to each other because the cat never used to stay in the bed with me. Now she would climb up, and when I go to bed, she'd rest on my chest for about 5 minutes. And like we said earlier, she'd just kind of walk off and do her thing, go to sleep in some closet. I think she's jealous. I think she's jealous of Ashley because she hangs around a bit more. She wants more of my attention, and she does know that I go out for walks with her, with Ashley, at this point twice a day. So I think there's some jealousy there.
Yeah, but they normally wind up getting along and becoming best of buds. So they're not always enemies like they're shown in cartoons or whatever. It's not always cats after dogs, but this one here, he gets along with cats too. But just what they're raised up around.
Yeah.
So so as you're gearing up for this incredible journey, how have you approached the challenge of managing your pack weight without sacrificing essential items?
This is very recent. And so I was training basically with all the stuff that I think I'm going to need at this point. And then I'm looking at, a March 15th launch date. That's cold weather. That's cold weather. Well, here in Virginia and, you know, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. So I had to rethink everything, pull everything out. What do I need? Sleep system, bag, tent, so forth. I'm probably for the first 2 months be wearing the winter jacket and the under jacket. So really it's just about essentials. Sleep system, clothes to stay warm in, and food to stay alive in. And so that's really all I've got, including a hat and gloves. Minimal is best, but I'm still covering about 45 pounds. And then, of course, we add the dog food. That's another 5 pounds. The worst thing about all of this is the water supply. When I take her out for walks, she's easily drinking a half a liter, after 12, 13 miles. So that's going to be a half a liter to a liter a day for her. The same for me, and that's going to be dehydrating me just at a liter. So one of the things I planned for was hiking in cold weather is a lot easier, depending, than hiking in hotter weather only because of the need for rehydration. And so that's why I'm choosing to go earlier in the year than later on in the year. And so that's kind of how I'm managing things. If I can manage the water supply, I'm going to be doing okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's always pros and cons to everything, but yeah, absolutely. If it's hot and you're sweating, you're needing to stay hydrated because you're losing so much of it through sweat. But I would imagine the trails that you're going through, there should be kind of like a lot of little mountain streams or whatever where you would have fresh water or clean water.
There are. So there are water supplies, there are streams, and there are going to be falls. What I need to bring with me is a water purifier, so a water purifying system. Otherwise, whatever's out there, parasites, is going to get you sick. And so I don't want me or her sick at any point in time. So other than that, what I've also learned, because people who've hiked the Appalachian Trail love to talk about their experience, whether it's been a section or the whole thing. Everybody loves the trail. So there's a whole camaraderie about hiking it, wanting to hike it. YouTube has its own community. But even just going out here locally or in North Carolina, which is where you see all those great pictures, Grandfather Mountain and the high country in North Carolina, everybody likes to talk about it. And so what they've told me at this point, because it's such a big thing on a yearly basis, there are towns at least every other day, every 5 to 10 miles, there's going to be a town, there's going to be a water supply as long as it's not frozen up. So everything should be available for me, or any thru hiker for that matter, but for me and Ashley to make this rather successful. So it's really just about, can you carry the weight? Can Ashley make it through, a 15, 16, even 20-mile day? And if that's doable, and this is the big A and D, can we survive cold nights together in a sleeping bag? If we can do that, this is a totally doable thing.
Nice. So you're still going to have a whole lot of unknowns. You just kind of go off of what you've been told and what you're there. So you're really going to kind of discover this as you're walking.
That's kind of the scary part. But the cold, I've chosen the cold, other than being eaten by a bear or being bitten by a snake. Those are your two options, because as it gets warmer,
They're going to come out. Yeah.
bears come out of hibernation. And I tell you, I'm here at First Landing, so I'm here in Virginia, and so I hike in Virginia Beach every weekend since like June, July, and at the time of this recording, it's September. I have seen a snake every week, and by I mean snake, I'm talking copperhead, and so you don't want to, get too close to a copperhead. Now I've been told that their bite is terrible. Even though they're poisonous, you're not going to die from it, but you'll probably get sick. Either way,
I prefer not to get bit by
my entire life, I've never been bit by a snake, and I have no intention of being
experiencing it.
Yeah, of experiencing that. And of course, I don't want Ashley bit either. So
No.
no. And this is really at this point, I've proven to myself I can do this. I now have to take care of her because I want her to have the experience as well.
Yeah. So at least you've been exposed to it a little bit. You have experience, or you have stuff to help protect you and
Mhm.
the pup. I would think it's been a long time since I've been on a beach, but I would think walking on the beach would kind of help prepare you even more, because it's tough walking through that sand. It's almost like an extra weight when you're picking up your
Mhm.
feet. I know some people run along the beach, but that's not easy to do.
It's not, it's not. So the beach pictures that we see in the video, my GoFundMe video, are from False Cape. And so where I'm in First Landing, if you go all the way down south, Virginia Beach, there's an entry point called Back Bay Wildlife Refuge. And if you go from the parking lot through False Cape, FALSE, there's actually two interconnecting trails where you go all the way to the Outer Banks. You could actually cross into North Carolina and hit the beachhead, and that's what I did. And so that's a good 18, 19 back and forth trip. And that's a good, but you're right. Carrying anything for the midpoint that, once you get to the beach, going in there, coming back is 7 miles. I have to pull out my trekking poles because, just like walking in mud or ice, it's like you're slipping and sliding and there's no traction. It's but it does. It strengthens the calves. It puts some, meat on the hamstrings, and as long as you can suck it up.
Suck it up, buttercup. And
To be honest,
it's kind of like a military thing, right? You adapt and overcome.
adapt and overcome, but it's not. It's never easy. So every time you
No.
go out there, it's like, oh, I did this. It's a fresh. It's new every time.
Yeah, but that's good though when you can look back and say, "Yeah, see, I did that." And if you can do that, then you should
Hmm.
be able to do the next one.
Hmm.
So now your
But
food.
go,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No,
No, go.
go. I was about to say at First Landing, it's still not as much. It is a beach area. There are some beach heads, so I do have to adapt a little bit for a couple of miles. But other than that, it's not a big 7 mile hike. That's just horrible, horrible when you get to the Outer Banks.
Yeah. So your food supply though, that can be a tricky part of any long distance hike. So what strategies have you found effective for meal planning and maintaining nutrition over such a long trek?
I want to jump on that and say the MRE is my go-to, but
Those were
it
not the healthiest.
no, it's not. It is and it's not. And so for calories, it has been. So I have been training, and the MREs of today are not the MREs of yesterday. So I was back in the core 80s and 90s. Right now, I'm working with Chat GPT to kind of learn how endurance athletes, triathletes, marathon runners, all of the above, really keep themselves fit by learning what they do. Because even though I've trained as an endurance athlete, I'm not a pro athlete by any stretch of the imagination. So I've got to learn from, the best and put those best practices in place. And so there's lots of good things out there in terms of, without naming names or, talking about, one food vendor or another, there's a ways of doing this that give the body the essential nourishment that it needs. Now, I have talked with a coach or two, so professional coaches, certified coaches, and one of the things I haven't been able to really do well at this point is replenish my electrolytes. And that's really, really important for somebody who's going to be sweating a lot, who's out there for 12 plus miles a day hiking. Even though I consume a lot of water, the electrolyte replenishment has not been a focus at this point, and I really need to know how to do that. So, as of this point, that's really my weak area, and I've got to learn how to adapt to that.
As I say, yeah, I have one. They're called Sustain. They're like it's in a little packet, and you can just drop it in the water bottle, shake it up, and you can have different flavors, and it provides electrolytes. So I do that myself, especially when we get out working. Like we just came back from Colorado from doing a ton of landscaping,
Mm.
and we're just sweating for my mom. It was to get it done for my mom. We're just sweating. It's like, okay, electrolyte time.
It is, and so I don't want to consume too many sugars, and so I just kind of really need to find the right balance with that. But so we need to talk offline because I really
Oh
do
yeah,
need.
we will do. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
do that. I do them sugar free just because my fiance is a type 2 diabetic, so I avoid that stuff myself. So,
yeah, yeah, and
but yeah,
that's gonna be a needed aspect. With Ashley, it's really we use Pedigree, so that's been really good in terms of how she maintains her health. Lots of water, the exercise. I'm now starting to make regular vet visits for her because I want to make sure that she stays healthy. This is going to be a critical time for both of us, but for the next 6 months, I need to make sure that her, not to be grossing anybody out, but I got to take a stool sample to the vet tomorrow just to make sure there's no parasites or anything because I just need to be really good with her. One, it's my first time taking care of a dog, but two, at this point, her health is really, really important because I want her to be part of this expedition with me. And so everything I do from the, 6 months out, the next 6 months, because she's not a service dog just yet. I do want her trained as a service dog. Right now, she's just preparing for a very long walk with me. Um, and I just want to be extra careful with her care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually really pretty resilient, and I think you'll find it's not as daunting, I don't think, as you think. But it's incredible though that it's a good thing to stay on top of their health because you want that. That's your partner, and
Mhm.
she's going to keep you going.
Mhm.
So, but with 14 states to cover, how do you plan your daily mileage and manage rest days to avoid burnout during your hike?
So practicing at First Landing State Park with her, my initial thought was every 5 miles we'll stop and we'll get. I at least want to give her water, right? She's made it 7, 8 miles and just chugging along. So I'm learning her with every day, every weekend. Like I said, this past Saturday we did 16 miles and she literally pulled me through that 16 miles. We only stopped 3 times for water, and then after it, I gave her a half a cup of food because she worked so hard for it. I think what I need to do is kind of continue monitoring that. So at this point, I'm thinking 16 miles a day on trail. If she could go past that, we'll look into it. I would like to average about 20, but with her maybe 16 to 17, and just kind of figuring out it's going to be cold, so she's not going to be like thirsting for water, but I want to make sure that she's hydrated throughout. And so my strategy at this point is 7, make a stop, do 7 more, make a stop, and see how much water she does take. And then after that, rest for the, once we hit our, our 16, 17 miles, 20 miles if we get to it, rest, give her food, and just kind of manage it that way. For me, I'm ready. So I've been ready for about, I want to say a good year, but really for the past, 3 or 4 months, I'm mentally ready. I'm physically ready. Just got to make some tweaks to, the gear and the pack weight. At this point, it's really prepping her for what I know she can do and making sure that I don't overtrain her or injure her in the next 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like you said, you've been training for this for a while. So, and that's great because I think being mentally ready, physically ready, I think mentally ready, I would say is probably, to me, even a bigger part than physically ready because, kind of what your mind can, can see, you can achieve.
Mhm.
So we can do a lot of mind over matter, but it's great to have more of it all into play and be ready.
Yeah.
So, what specific challenges do you anticipate on the journey and that are unique or raising, or And I know you're this whole thing is about raising awareness about veteran suicide. So, how do you plan to address them while on the trail?
For me, it's so there have been some challenges. So we're going to get a little bit personal now because although I say I'm ready for this hike and I do wake up, I'm motivated, I walk, I restructure the pack, I do all those technical things. This year alone has been challenging for me in terms of my PTSD. So I've had more nightmares, more frequent nightmares. I've actually incurred some dizziness, some blackouts. And so there have been some additional challenges that I've not faced before. Typically, my challenges have overcoming, feet itch or feet swelling or cramps in my legs, shoulder weight, all these things that have been physically challenging. my PTSD has been a challenge this year, and I'm not quite sure why. I'm telling my doctor I feel like I'm falling apart, and there are times I want to cry because I don't want that to be a limiting factor for making this hike a reality. So I am going to the VA, one medical appointment after, at least once a week, if not once every other week. I'm doing therapy. What I've found is that if I could focus, and like you said earlier, if I could kind of put that focus on the target, a lot of the other symptomologies kind of take a lesser impact. And so, as long as I'm intentional with what I'm doing, I feel better about it. And all of those negative factors in my life, the nightmares, they're going to be there, but I've found a way to overcome them, at least on a day to day basis. Not as, I'm healed or anything like that, but I could kind of come into a day and say, okay, where am I? Take a real quick assessment of how my night went, how yesterday went, and then say, okay, can I do what I need to do today to make it through? And so far, that's kind of worked. I'm working with a team, not so much, my therapist, but people who are in the mental health field for mentoring, cheerleading, support, feedback. So there are people on my end who are kind of guiding me along the psychological, the psychiatric aspects of all of this that are kind of keeping me accountable for one, myself, and two, am I able to take care of somebody else, Ashley? And so that's kind of working pretty good. So there's none of this, oh, I'm superhuman, I'm Superman, I could do this without anybody. That's not going to work for this. So I do need the help of others. And I found my team, just like in my book. I found my team, and that feels really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good too. Yeah, because that's not just that takes a lot of work and a lot of courage, to get through that. So definitely commend you for doing that. I know it's an easy. It's not something you can just like wash away, but when you have a supportive team and different modalities, different methods, because different things work for different people, it's not the same for everybody. So I'm glad that you found your team
Me
to help
too.
you through that. Yeah.
I tell you what, having friends that know the right things and more importantly, will hold you accountable. Lots of people, will say, kind of check up on you, see how you're doing, every couple of weeks or once a month or whatever. But, I got some friends who I can call. Sometimes you're one of them, say, hey, I'm faced with this challenge. What do you think about that? Or today's not a really good day. I've got a friend, Mitch Gray, who's, my mentor, my friend, um, practically my brother. And I could just call him up and say, hey, this is, I'm having a challenge today. And, he's right there with me. And so having those people in your corner is really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super important for anyone. I think sometimes we try to tuck all that down and try and take care of it ourselves and not burden others. But, we always say we want to help each other, but sometimes it's difficult for us to ask for that help. But and I'm happy to be one of your people, but I'm glad you found a team. So that's really important.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you've done and kind of, you know,
Oh, you as well.
working on the back end and say, hey, how are you doing? And what are you doing today?
Yeah, you as well. You as well. I greatly appreciate you. Now, to do all this is not easy, and I know fundraising is a crucial part of supporting your mission. So, what innovative approaches have you taken to engage supporters and encourage them to contribute to this? Because it's an important cause of what you're hiking for.
So at this point, I'm still working still trying to get sponsors in. The GoFundMe has raised close to $900. Um, my next evolution in all of that is to pull at people's heartstrings because I've got a dog now. And so I'm thinking that maybe approaching this from a different angle, if you're not going to sponsor me as a disabled veteran, will you sponsor Ashley? And so that's kind of one of the things I'm thinking about doing. I have yet to kind of go to the American Legion or DAV or things like that. I am in a process going back to the whole service dog. You know, I want to get her trained as a service dog. You connected me with a friend, and she's been a great benefit to kind of work through that. And I actually had a conversation with her earlier today, and I'm finding agencies that will train service dog or train dogs to be a service dog. And I want my dog to be trained as a service dog. And so the other part of that is I'm reading their stories, like their backstories on their websites. And I'm thinking, wow, that may actually benefit me in two ways. They may be willing, as a wounded warrior myself, be willing to kind of take a look at my story and then maybe take a look at Ashley's story as something that they're willing to support. And so um, there's still some ideas left. I've got 6 months. But the bigger story here is really kind of creating space for, I don't want this to be a one and done. I kind of want this to be maybe not an every year thing, but maybe like an every other or every third year. And once I've learned how to do the Appalachian Trail, actually bring other people along, other veterans or whomever, and kind of make this an event that will get people's interest, pique their interest, and say, hey, Keith McNally is doing something really cool. One, for himself, two, for his dog, and three, for other veterans. And so I have worked with some people. I'm developing a business model. It's called the Trail to Transformation Foundation, or the T3 Foundation. So once I'm done with the AT hike, kind of the next step is to kind of be on stage, be a public speaker, get this nonprofit underway, and really help individuals, veterans specifically, especially male veterans who kind of, like you said, suck it up or push it all down.
Yeah.
Not a good way to approach life. I want to get them out into nature. I want to get them out experiencing life again. Put the phone down, put the computer away, step away from the TV, Sunday night football, Monday night. Step away from all that for a little bit and reconnect with yourself, with others, reconnect with the earth. That's kind of what I want to do as this evolves into its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I have some other people I can connect you with as well while we're talking. I'm thinking, so as Mindful Mondays and all of our viewers watching, what is the best way for them to support you? What do you really need to raise? How much do you need to raise to make this trip happen?
My goal for GoFundMe was 20,000, and 20,000 covers the cost of pretty much everything. So the gear that I've already purchased, or the gear that I'm going to need, food, especially dog care at this point, veteran care. So all the essentials that you think are necessarily. I was going for a goal of 20,000, but anything over what I need to take care of me, to take care of Ashley, really goes then into the T3 Foundation. So getting that business model up and running, making those contacts, getting the website up, and all those things to kind of get people's interest and helping people understand that there are veterans out there. And even though the number may not be 22 anymore, depending on what source, veterans still die by suicide. And that's just a shame. That's a sin. There's no way of excusing that. And I do have some people in North Carolina and in my team who are interested in lowering that number, even if it's 22, 20, 18, even one is too much. And so we really need to make an impact of how people view veterans, their issues, and their challenges. And so if I could be the model for that, and I know I'm not the only one, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for people to recognize that whether it's a Vietnam vet or wherever, anytime somebody faces trauma, there's an issue, and we hide it. I know I've hid for a long time, and I'm about to cry, and I don't want to cry. But I know the challenges there. I know what it's like to hide in the closet. I know what it's like to cry and nobody hear or nobody care. We need to tell veterans that there are people that care, and that just needs to happen.
Yeah. And it's okay to let it out. I know a lot of them. The more you keep it bottled in, I think the more damage you do, you know, to yourself. But it's okay to let it out. I don't know where everybody got this idea that if somebody cries this, oh, it makes them less of whatever. No, it's emotions, it's feelings, and you got to be able to get it out instead of packing it down all the time because it does affect you.
Hmm. And
And
what I've learned now is that, just like you, having a dog kind of changes that too. Ashley has been a real blessing, and so the more we could kind of promote the idea of a service dog being beneficial, not just for people with physical disabilities, but with people with PTSD, with suicidal ideation, with depression.
oh, they're trained for that
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
My
yes,
friend can tell
and
you
that's
this. They always knew when her migraines were going to come on before she did, and boom, they'd be there. They can sense those things. They can sense when people need them.
yeah, and because I was watching a YouTube video. Now I'm watching YouTube videos on how to take care of dogs, right? Um, you're right. They have this innate ability to sense the energy or something within the human body, tumor, sickness, whatever that is, migraines. And then I'm watching, and I forget which dog food manufacturer, but they support or sponsor. I wish I remembered the actual dog food manufacturer. It's not Pedigree, for PTSD. And so there's an energy that's emitted when somebody's going through some symptomology,
Mm.
and a dog can pick up on that. And so that has to be an amazing thing to have a service dog with you 24/7, kind of be your rescuer. I rescued her. She could
Yeah.
rescue me.
Before I adopted my friend's service dog, I had just lost my Dalmatian and had to put him to sleep because of cancer.
Mm.
And we were at an IHOP, and she was sitting over there, and this pup never leaves her. He always at her feet, but he left her underneath the table, came over, and just laid his head on my legs. And she's like, "Where'd he go?" She goes, "He knows you need him."
Wow.
He just gravitated over, and of course he was used to me because I would take her to her appointments and stuff a lot. And so when she did need to get a new one and I adopted him, I was torn up because I thought, oh my God, I'm tearing up this family. But he was so used to me. It was just, he made it really an easy kind of seamless transition. And
He adopted you.
yeah, he did, and they will do that.
Yeah.
So, but how can we best support you?
Money is always good, but truthfully, connect with me on LinkedIn. I really would love people just to kind of tap in and say, "Hey, you know, how you doing? You know, meet me on the trail." That's what I've been telling people. People have said, "I can't hike the whole thing with you." Like,
Right.
okay, but maybe a couple miles. I said, "Please join me on the trail. If you can do nothing else, join me on the trail. It goes from Georgia to Maine. Surely, somewhere in that 2,000 miles, you can spare a mile or two."
Oh, yeah. So if they connect with you, they love to walk. Maybe they want to keep you company for a few miles. So,
Yeah, that would be perfect. And you could do that on LinkedIn and or my email. So I'm not sure which email connection you have got, so either my Gmail or Yahoo, but really LinkedIn is a cool place to connect. And I just say, but if you're going to join me on trail, bring some food.
yeah, you don't have enough for everybody.
bring
Yeah.
bring some real food, please. I
Yeah.
would love that. I would love that. It'd be awesome.
So, as you prepare physically and mentally for this trek, what personal rituals or practices do you incorporate into taking your training routine to staying focused and motivated?
So what you don't see behind this wall is a table. And on that table, I've got a poster board. So remember poster boards when we were like in school
Mhm.
and you got to do whatever. And I've got this map of what the AT, my own, I don't draw well, but I've got a map. I've drawn my own map. And I've got circles of things that, and people's names or places or potential sponsors. Um, I am making a daily mental plan of what each section, each mile should look like. So whether I'm dreaming about it or visualizing it or quite literally mapping it out. And I'll tell you what, this is probably the second or third time I said it in this conversation. ChatGPT has been really helpful. Um, and that's meaning the logistical planning. And so I've talked with ChatGPT about my diagnoses, the foot path, how to get Ashley involved and up to speed. So it's been a really good companion just in terms of thinking things out and planning the trek quite literally step by step by step. Because I don't want there to be, metaphorically speaking, any missteps. There's really no place for that at this point. Now I do have, the app. There's my phone and some paper behind it. So I've got the app, but it's really the mental preparation of saying, okay, when do you actually start the launch? I said there's a date, but what is if I don't get some good sleep the night before, that first 15 miles or 16 miles, it's going to be challenging.
It's
And
gonna
I've
be tough.
and I've done that before. I've done back-to-back 20 miles with very little sleep. I don't want to do that once I'm out there. And so I've learned some meditation techniques to kind of help me get into a deep, REM sleep for me. I know Ashley's there in my bed. I've got the map, drawing. I've got a map in my head. I've got these techniques and practices that say, okay, and when I get stressed, my therapist has worked with me on some of the things. Breathing, I didn't realize how calming breathing can be. Not until this past year. And so there's different breathing techniques. And I'm an asthmatic, and so breathing is really, really important. But there's one thing to have an asthma attack, and there's one thing to be stressed and nervous because things that are going on inside my body or my mind. I've learned how to calm myself down, which has been just fanatical in terms of how this helps me focus.
Right.
So there's different things that I have learned and have now put into practice that have been really good. And so the only thing I need to learn at this point is to pull back on Ashley because she just goes and goes and goes. And I mean that literally. I said she literally pulls me. I've got to pull her back. And I've learned that that's actually an anxious trait on her end that can be rectified with the right trainer. So I've got to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have about 2 minutes left, Keith. So looking ahead, what message or takeaway do you hope people will gain from your hike once you complete this monumental journey across the Appalachian Trail?
Really, at this point is don't give up. Because I've wanted to give up. I've often got out of bed and said, what in the world am I doing and why am I doing it? But once I reframe it to say, this is important, I've got to do it. I've got to do it for me. And I think once people recognize that when they wake up in the morning and they find themselves a target, something personally valuable, and they go after it, that's what I want people to know, that they can achieve what they want to achieve with intention, with the right support system, and then learning how to do it. Because how do you do something that you've never done before? You watch other people do it. I've watched lots of YouTubers, thru-hikers, hike the Appalachian Trail on their video. It's my turn. But I've got to learn how to do it. I've got to go do it to learn how to do it.
No. And you've got an important mission and purpose for doing it.
Yeah.
You know that.
I appreciate, Laura, I do appreciate your time today.
Yeah, you too. Everybody, I hope you can, here's the GoFundMe link. Please support Keith and his mission in bringing that awareness to veteran suicide. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and we will see you all again next Monday. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.